Hello, and welcome to the webinar, Establishing Operational Excellence in Your Robotic Service Line in Pursuit of the Quadruple Aim. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. First, we have Terry Fregoletti. Terry is the Vice President of Perioperative Services with Hackensack Meridian Health. She started her career at Hackensack University Medical Center in the perioperative services environment and has been in perioperative management since 1992. She currently consults in perioperative services across several hospital sites and leads a perioperative team nationally recognized by the Competency and Credentialing Institute as a CNOR strong facility. Second, we have Vivian Kufor, who is a clinical level 3 nurse champion for robotic surgery at Hackensack University Medical Center. She is originally from Ghana, Africa. With over 30 years of nursing experience, Vivian oversees day-to-day operation of Vinci robotic surgeries and provides direct patient care in both circulating and scrubbing roles on all procedures. And lastly, we have Stephanie Davis. Stephanie is a Genesis consultant with Intuitive. She has a background of working nationally and internationally with the OR with different device companies. Prior to joining the Genesis team, Stephanie worked within the Intuitive Clinical Organization, helping to build Da Vinci programs in academics, community, and large IDN hospitals in Northern California. At this point, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Terry.
Hi, everybody. So what is Hackensack University Medical Center? We're a 781-bed academic medical center, and we're less than 7 miles from New York City in New Jersey. We're the flagship of Hackensack Meridian Health, and we do over 33,000 operations a year in our 38 OR suites. We're the second hospital in the nation also to be able to say that we are a magnet designated hospital. We have surgeons that use our Da Vinci robots across 9 specialties. So we're very well versed in robotic surgery. Okay, so our president, Ihor Sawchuk, has said that it's always about the patient first for us, and it always will be. So for us, we have to figure out a way to do robotic surgery and put the patient first. So I'm going to start with the why. Early on, we made a decision that we were never going to say no to our surgeons or our patients if we had the opportunities to say yes. So we started a culture of say yes. And at the end of the day, this is the why we wanted to have a 24/7 robotic access program. We had a patient that was 78 years old, and he had had a colonoscopy at some outside facility. And on a Friday night, he came to our ER with severe abdominal pain. So we were able to do 2 things with him. We could open him up and do a major abdominal surgery, or we could do robotic technology. So had we done the open surgery, we all know it would be a large midline incision. The patient would have a colostomy bag. He would have had a 10-day length of stay in our hospital. And at 78 years old, he would have to deal with learning how to use a colostomy and all the psychological trauma that would come with that decision. Or we could do robotic-assisted surgery. And we were able to do it robotically. The patient had these 4 tiny holes instead of the big incision with the colostomy bag. He was able to go home on Sunday morning in less than 36 hours with normal bowel function. So the choice is clear. You really want to be able to offer robotic surgery whenever the patient needs it. So you have to understand your organizational strategic priorities. You're going to be going and asking for capital in excess of close to $2 million. You really need to have your act together when you go there. So our executive team meets monthly, and really all their meetings are focused on the Quadruple Aim. So as an OR leader, when you're going to ask for equipment, you need to align that to the Quadruple Aim so you're speaking the same language. So when you say this will improve our health outcomes, it's good to show your length of stay is reduced, you have lower infection rates. When you say the costs are lower, it's good to use that blood utilization is lower, the cost of blood, that we were able to get higher CMI patients in. And for patient experience, it's a no-brainer. The patients are asking for robotic surgery, and so you kind of have to provide it nowadays as a standard of care. And the patients are happy, they go back to work earlier, they resume their activities of daily life, and they tell their friends. And improving physician satisfaction, the bottom line is physicians want this technology, and they're willing to drive to another hospital to get it. So when you're building a robotic assisted service line, you really need to have three key things. You need to have an executive leader that believes in your program. You need to have a clinical doctor leader that can speak the talk of why we need it. And you need to have someone in the OR that's able to put the program pieces together and make it work. But the most important thing, don't forget, the foundation of your program is your team. So without the nurses in the OR, without central processing and the schedulers, and all the people that do the cases, you really don't have a service line. So I can't say enough that the foundation of our program really is the team members that do the cases. So we need to talk each other's languages. So for our executive lead, our regional president, I need to know what's important to him. And for him, he wants to grow the program. He wants high volume. He wants good financial performance, a good margin. He's worried about the payer mix and the revenue. And he's worried about capacity and throughput of the hospital and cost management. Clinically, the director of our program is a physician. So he cares about not converting, no readmissions, no complications, the length of stay of the patients. He wants the OR to be efficient, and he wants to reduce variation. And operationally, as an OR leader, I want people to have access to our systems, to have full block utilization and easy scheduling. I want capacity to be good, the throughput to be good. I want to make sure that I'm managing my inventory and standardizing where I can. And most importantly, I want to make sure that the staff is trained and they know what they're doing and they're good at what they do. So for us, we were early adopters of the technology. We had our first robot in January of 2000, and both Vivian and I have been here and worked with every single robot that Intuitive has ever released. So we're pretty versed on all the different robots and all the different technology. And really cooperation and leadership are key for your program. And I'll tell you, it hasn't been easy, and it's a journey, not a destination, but you need to start in order to arrive at a destination, and the ball keeps moving forward. So in the beginning, I must admit, I thought it was a marketing gimmick. We had a couple of surgeons that wanted to get in early on robotics and thought it was going to go places. I attended an executive session, and early on, people with busy ORs that were at capacity weren't so sure that this was the right way to go. Because in order to allow robotics to grow, we needed to have some other case that was in an OR removed to make space for the robot. So we also had limitations. We only had one robot. Who was going to use it? Everybody kind of wanted to start using it. I saw it a little bit like maybe a big expensive toy. The P&L was very, very negative, and the CFO did not support buying more of them. And in the beginning, Intuitive was really about selling robots. And so we didn't really see it as an opportunity to partner with them. So we went to the insurance companies and we said, look, we get better results with prostates and with cancer patients. They have better margins for cancer. They have less reoperations. And for prostates, the data shows that for incontinence and for impotence, it's better with the robot. The insurance companies bought into that, yes, they would pay a little more for that. So we started to have a way to say the robot is going to be used first for urology, then cancer, and then anybody else if they happen to have time. So the next thing is we went to a 360 conference in November of 2016, and that really changed our perception of robotics. So I would say that that was our turning point. What did we learn there? We learned that Intuitive was a partner for us. They actually had the same alignment that we had. They wanted to do a lot of robotic cases at high quality and low cost. So they actually were a partner. And then we recognized that it had some financial value in looking at some of the case studies that were presented at this conference. We also saw at the conference that it was important to measure your quality and your efficiency, and that we really needed to have a dedicated robotics coordinator in order to move the program forward. And that if you really had data, the data doesn't lie. So we came back and we wanted immediately to get a data manager from this conference. That system access is something that we had to work on, and we needed it to be a standalone service line. So we came back and we made Dr. Stifelman the chair and director of our robotics service line. We met with our business intelligence people and we built robotic dashboards. And we had a robotic coordinator that worked on some operational processes and standardization within the OR. And each division that used the robot had a division director assigned, and they were responsible to make sure that their division's dashboards were reviewed on a monthly basis. We put staff training front and center, and our staff was excited to be part of this team, and our surgeons were excited to have the staff training alongside them. So I'm going to just show you some of the metrics that we built. We had metrics for length of stay, and we were able to show that the length of stay was shorter in robotic surgery. We had, and this was kind of an aha slide when we looked at colectomy. And this now is our data, our own personal data, not something you see at a conference. This used our own data. So patients stayed in the hospital that had colectomies 10.4 days. If they were done laparoscopically, they still had an 8-day length of stay. And our robotics were doing 5.9 length of stay days. We were actually very surprised when we saw this slide. And we found out that doing colectomy robotically saved us $7,000 a case. So we were able to do away with, don't use the robotic for colectomies, it'll cost us a fortune. Now we were able to show that there were savings in doing it robotically. You'll see on the next slide that we did the same thing for hysterectomy. And again, we were very, very surprised because in our hospital, it was like, don't do benign hysterectomies on the robot, you'll lose your shirt. But when we actually analyzed our very own data, we found that if we did an open hysterectomy, they stayed 3.1 days, and robotically, they stayed 1.2, even shorter than laparoscopically, which did surprise us. And they were $3,000 a case less expensive to do on a robot. We also had some data where we looked at readmission rates and transfusions. So we found out that less people were readmitted after robotic surgery than with general open surgery. We also saw that we were using less blood and less transfusions for robotic surgery. So when we looked at it overall, we saw that it had a clear economic value to our hospital. And so when we went to talk to administration about purchasing more robots, this is the data we used to tell the story. And we were able to tell the story from our very own cases. And if you look at where we thought we were losing money on robotics, we found that our contribution margin is more than $7.5 million a year on inpatient robotics. And we put one over in our ambulatory surgery center to give us more backfill space on our inpatient OR. And we figured, oh, that's going to lose money over there, but we'll just put one there to move the cases out of the OR. And we were pleasantly surprised to see that even our outpatient cases, where we don't have specialty carve-out rates, still made over $560,000 a year for outpatient robotics. And so when we dug in, why is this phenomenon happening? We noticed that it's the types of cases that people have done robotically, the cancer cases, the prostate cases, are people that have good insurance. They're a little bit younger in age group. And our hospital is a 60% Medicare hospital, but in robotics, inpatient wise, we're only running 28% Medicare, and in outpatient, 18%. So it actually is a service line where if you increase the CMI, the case mix insurance is very good. So we did have challenges, and whenever I do a talk, usually people bring up questions about the challenges that they're having that are similar. So executive support. This is very, very key that you have an executive who has a big voice at your hospital or your network on how you're spending your money, that is a proponent of robotics. And how you get them to do that is you quarterly meet with them and you show them the data, because the data doesn't lie and it's very powerful data. Also, I hear that, well, the staff that goes home at a certain hour, then we can't use the robot after that. So I can't overestimate staff training and availability. Vivian was key in that our staff was willing to work overtime and come in on Saturdays, and our surgeons were willing to work every single day of the week if they could get access to the robot, and they were willing to work till like 11 o'clock at night just to have access to that robot. So we were kind of burning our staff out. And we had the opportunity, we were hiring an evening staff of all new PeriOp 101 nurses. And Vivian had the idea, why don't we train them all to use the robot? And that was a moment that we really sat back and said, the robot now is a piece of equipment like any other OR piece of equipment. It's used in so many service lines. We have to treat it as if it's a cautery or a microscope, and people need to learn how to use it. So that was our foray into starting to train the staff. A lot of places are worried that anesthesia is not aligned, but once you show them your own data and you show them that our volume's increasing and our time in the OR is decreasing, and our case mix is better and our insurance mix is better, then anesthesia is instantly aligned. So you really have that same alignment. Central processing can be a hindrance if you don't include them in your team and in your process. So central processing is very complicated, very complex, and they really need to feel included in your program. And Intuitive does a good job at coming in and spending boots on the ground, shoulder to shoulder time with central processing. So you should really consider having that as part of building the robotics program. And if you don't have a robotic coordinator, you really need to get one. It's a specialty unto itself, and it needs a lot of coordination. So you really do need to have someone dedicated as a nurse in charge of your robotics program. We also hear that there's inconsistent staff or travelers that may or may not know the robot. And the more you train your own staff and you have that everybody's going to learn how to do it, the less of a variable this becomes, because you have enough of your own team to supplement travelers. We also came up with an emergent case plan that we eventually trained everyone to use the robot. And we kind of thought we had it solved. We were training everyone, and the robot was available till 11 o'clock at night, until one day I came into my office, and waiting for me was a surgeon that says he just spent 6.5 hours all night long doing a robotic case, a case that should have been done robotically, laparoscopically. And he said the worst part of it is every time he looked up to roll his shoulders and take a stretch, he looked at the robot that was sitting in the corner of the room with a drape over it, waiting for the morning. And at that point, we knew we had to train our night staff. So we trained our night staff as well to learn how to use the robot, except we forgot to tell the surgeons. So if you have your emergent case plan, you really do need to communicate it and let everyone know when you could use the robot and what your plan is to use it. There was also a lot of people that said, oh, they're never going to buy us another robot. It's a pipe dream. And so what do you do about bad apples and naysayers? You just move on and you build a great program, and everyone wants to get involved with a great program. So they kind of joined in, some along the way, some later than others. But now I think everyone that's here knows that if we need another robot, we're going to figure out a way to get it, and we're going to figure out a way to grow that program. If you don't have a steering committee, you really need to have one. And that steering committee really needs to involve everyone. So it involves everyone from our admission, our scheduling people, our nurses in the OR, our physicians and directors of each service line. I'm on that steering committee. Central processing is at that steering committee. And it's amazing how everyone has a piece of the puzzle that they know. So central processing may know, hey, these scissors are only getting through our system 6 times and then they're failing. Or scheduling may say, hey, there's 2 new surgeons that are looking to do robotic cases. Oh, we don't have time. So all that kind of information could be vetted at the steering committee, because everyone has a place at the table and everyone feels important. And then you have to make sure there's access to the robot. So initially, as our robot filled up, we noticed that some people who had block time did a couple of robot cases and a couple of non-robot. And that left the robot with downtime, sitting unused. So we also noticed that as the robot blocks released a couple of weeks out, that they were gobbled up by mostly orthopedics or vascular cases that don't use the robot. So we were able to set up a system by taking input that on robotic days for your block, you could only do robotic cases, because we had to maximize that use of the robot. And we also had a thing that when the robot time releases, it releases to other robot surgeons first. And we send out an email to all their offices and say, robot time just opened 2 weeks from now on Friday from 7 to 4. And the surgeons, first come, first serve, whoever calls first will get that time. So they learned to keep waiting lists in their office of flexible patients that were able to jump on and use that robot at any time, at any point. So all of those things were things that we had to overcome to make sure that our program was successful. Now I'm going to turn over to Vivian, who's going to explain all the details and all the magic she does to make our robotic program a success. Vivian?
Thank you, Terry. My name is Vivian. Like Terry said, I've been with Hackensack for 26 years, and I've been a nurse 30 years. And how do you establish operational excellence in your robotic service line to align with the Quadruple Aim? Number one, you need a dedicated robotic coordinator. And as the robotic coordinator at Hackensack University Medical Center, these are my core responsibilities: overseeing the day-to-day operations of the robotic surgery, and also providing support to my staff and my surgeons. These are the unique aspects of our program that has been instrumental in the development of our service line that has led to sustainable and our growth. And these aspects is going to be the building block of your the robotic program you're building. And I'm going to expand all these. Number one is staff training. To keep up operational excellence, it's imperative to make sure your staff are trained. So in the OR, we have PeriOp 101 program that we in the operating room. I call them OR Nurse 101. These are nurses who've been hired straight from college into the operating room. And we have some nurses from the floor who want to come to the OR. And technically, they have zero OR experience. In the past, it's only nurses with experience were selected to be trained in the robotic service line. But in our facility, we have incorporated robotic service line into their rotation, so everybody gets trained. All new hires, everybody gets trained, just like we see robotic service line just like any other service line. We also provide continuing education, which I will talk about it later. We have annual competencies that we've developed for all our staff to complete. And we also encourage our staff to sign up to the Vinci community to do some practice modules to expand our knowledge in robotics. And we do acknowledge team success. Every year we have 4 team members selected to go to the NARIS conference, which is North America Robotic Urologic Symposium Conference in Vegas. And then when they go, they have to come back and do a presentation to the whole OR in one of our monthly meetings to bring back what they learned. I had the opportunity to go last year. That was in February. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to present because then the pandemic hit. So these are the training pathways that we've created for our new hires. For the PeriOp 101, we have track 1. So before they come to us in the OR, they have 8 to 9 weeks in-class training. So when they come to us, they can be coming from another service rotation, or they come straight from the class training to us. So what we do is we have them scrub 4 to 5 weeks. At this point, they try to implement aseptic technique and develop surgical conscience. And during that time, be able to integrate the workflow specifically to the in terms of robotic cases. So we start them to scrub first, because as a new nurse into the operating room, being asked to circulate in the robotic room is very overwhelming. So starting them to scrub keeps them focused and less responsibility. So when the time comes for them to drop down to circulate, then they have seen the whole picture and they know how to anticipate, and also they know how to prioritize. So starting them to scrub is very helpful. And then track 2 is when they come from another service line. So already they've have their aseptic technique in place, the surgical conscience is in place. So they spend only 2 to 3 weeks scrub, and then they circulate for 2 weeks. So in the scrub, at the scrub roll, what we go through is they learn how to drip the system on drip, and also error management. What do these LED colors, what do they mean? What action do I need to take? Guided tool change. What is the location of the emergency wrench, which is really, really critical, even though we don't use it, but they need to know. Guided tool change. So we go through all these scenarios for them. So by the time they finish, they're really proficient. So this pathway is for RNs with OR experience. When they come to us, the same thing, we put them, but instead of 4 to 5 weeks, it's only 2 to 3 weeks scrub, and then they'll drop down to 2 to 3 weeks because they already have the OR experience. So it's easier for them to just go through the system. But then we have RNs who's been hired to the OR, they have OR experience, but they don't have robotic experience. Then we tailor their training to their individualized learning needs. So we have a pathway also for this certified surgical techs. When they come to us with no OR experience, they will follow the PeriOp 1 hour service rotation, but it's only 2 to 3 weeks. And the same, when they have robotic experience, it's tailored to their individualized learning needs. Okay, this is the continuing education that I was talking about. This is something that we've been doing, and it's been really helpful to our staff, both the techs and the nurses. This is a program that we do annually, and there are two aspects to this program. We have the technical aspect of the program and then the clinical aspect. I asked my intuitive rep to assist me with the technical aspect, where we take a deep dive into the system. It's hands-on, very interactive. We bring this system into our auditorium or the conference room where the course is gonna be. So everyone, whatever question you have, you are able to get answer at that day. And this is, it's a 4-hour CEU, and it's offered on Saturday. And the turnout is amazing. And this is a program that we've been doing since 2015. And the dividend that it pays is the weight in gold for what we do to execute this valuable program, and people always anticipate for this. And none of this is possible without the help of the leadership of this organization, because everyone that comes is getting paid 4 hours, and at the same time, they're getting their 4 CEUs. And these are the competency verification tool that we use. It's very comprehensive, 7-page. So what we do is we take evidence-based practice and integrate it into our daily practice to improve our patient outcome. Intuitive Surgical, they have worth of resources for you and your program to take advantage of. It's up to us or up to your program to partner with them to understand what they offer to continue to build the program that you are building. In my humble opinion, they are the best in the business of partnering with. From my experience with them, they are always there. Even the Genesis, which we need them, they are there. The central processing, you call them, they are there. So they've been really, really instrumental in our program. As our robotic program evolves, so too does our access to the Vinci technology, because of the profound results our patients have experienced. So we do not say no to our patients or our surgeons, just like my vice president said. So we have open access policy. And what do I mean by that? It means we have true 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 every day of the year. If a surgeon calls and during the middle of the night, a patient coming from the emergency room, and they request to utilize the Da Vinci technology, we have the staff to support the cases. So because we have well-structured training plan and program that has really prepared our staff. So late shift, emergency, entire OR is trained. We are able to support these cases because every patient that comes through our door, it either is a scheduled case, elective, or through the emergency room, they should have access to the leading edge technology that we have. So that's how we are able to provide 24/7 access. So as we progress clinically, we're always looking for ways to progress economically. Okay, so we have tray standardization, streamlining and consolidation, updating the surgeon preference card, and consistency. They are key to reducing variation and cost. And SPD training is essential, just like my vice president said, because the Vinci instrumentation needs specialized maintenance and sterilization. Without proper training, that can really affect patient outcome. Okay, preparation makes or breaks the day. I have a shot of surgeon's preference card. For efficiency, it's really imperative to make sure the surgeon preference card information is up to date. This helps us to, prepare the case thoroughly and precisely. It's having a supply on the surgeon's preference card that is not used anymore can really, cost. It's just a waste of cost and something that we really don't want to do. And also, the picture on the right bottom used to be a tray for general cases. For example, cholecystectomy, hernias. You can see we have the laparoscopic tray, and then we have the minor basket. We used to open this tray, and then we realized we are opening all these trays, and we are not using not as much in there. So wasting resources to reprocess it, we were able to consolidate the trays and streamline it. So now the setup at the top is basically, that's what you use for most of the minor general cases. So you can see you don't have a suction there. We have it in the room, it's spill pouch. If the surgeon needs it, we just open it. So this has really helped at the cost of, and also waste of resources. This is something that was very challenging for us at the beginning. Because, I will speak from my experience. Our ORs are old. So they were built for basically open procedures. So bringing all these components of this robotic system into a room was very challenging for us. So what I did was I developed a book. So every room that you go and where you want to place the patient card is all in the book. You open it and it's there. So for instance, if you're doing a procedure, for example, right nephrectomy, the patient card goes to right. But if you're doing a procedure like fundoplication, periesophageal hernia, splenectomy, if you put you place the patient card at the wrong side of the room, the surgeon walks in, he's upset. And then you have to try to move it to the other side of the room. The rooms are tiny as it is. So having this book, for instance, in room X, you go in, it's listed all the procedure that needs to go to the left side, the right side of the patient is there. And the same room, if you have procedure that the robot needs to be on the other side, which is the patient's left, it's already. So they just reference to the book, and it has made us very, very efficient. Then we have room Y. This room was specifically built for the robotic system. So we place the patient card right at the foot of the patient, and when you're ready to dock, you can go either left or right. So people who have newer ORs, probably you don't have our situation, but if you have older ORs, this has been really, really helpful to us and has made us very efficient. So this is the hands-on team. Efficiency at its best. To be efficient, everybody needs to play an active role. Our goal here is to turn over less than 30 minutes. And for us to be able to achieve this, we've decided, we've made our activities into two. So we have these two activities, external activities that are performed with patient not in the room. And then we have internal activities. Those are activities performed while the patient in the room. So this is normal preparation for a procedure. Our turnover time is wheels up and wheels in. So normally these are the activities that are performed, and then it gets to, after you drape the Vinci, and then you send for the patient. In our facility, the patients are brought to us, and then we interview the patient before we bring them to the room. But if it's in your facility where you have to go to the holding area to get a patient, this process will work for you also. So to achieve maximum or optimal efficiency, our goal is to convert as much of the external activities into internal activities. So now, as you can see, as soon as environmental service leaves the room, we bring the case card in, prepare the OR table, we send for the patient. And in order to do this, you need a facilitator, which we have at our organization here. So the facilitator will go in. So when we send for the patient, normally it takes about 5 to 10 minutes before the patient comes into the room. So at this point, we are open because our trays are streamlined. The supplies, they are all available because the case card is already prepared before the turnover time. So at any point, when you're doing all these activities inside, opening supplies, setting up back table, when the patient comes, or if the circulator needs to go out to get the patient, the facilitator stays and with the scrub and they continue. So as soon as the circulator comes back, then we will switch position out. The facilitator will stay with the anesthesiologist, and the circulator will go and stay with the scrub. So at this point, they can count and drape. All these activities can be done while the patient is in the room. But because by us, when the patient comes, we do briefing. So after the briefing, then we will switch, and then the circulator. This is how we are able to turn over in less than 30 minutes. So what is our foundation? Our foundation is the culture that we've built and cultivated. We've created a culture that drives and supports high reliability. We have a great communication. We have tools that we have briefing, timeout, debriefing, and also our staff, we are not afraid to speak up if we see any variation in care. We try to be a member of the robotic team. Teamwork is natural among us. Great morale. We are like a family. This is a picture that I took one time. I saw the nurse carrying the tech to her room, and I said, "What is the problem?" And the nurse said, "Oh, the tech doesn't feel like walking to her room." So he carried her to her room. So this is how we are. We carry each other, literally. So as the leader of the team, I come in 6 o'clock in the morning. When I come, the first thing I do, because we have 24/7 access, when I'm gone after 3:30, I don't know how many cases were done, how many trays are available. So I will do a quick inventory to make sure we have enough scopes to start the day. And then after that, I go to each and every room. In the main OR, we have 5 robots. So I'll go there, make sure the systems are hooked up, connected, and powered on. By doing this, it allows me to see if there's any problem. I try to rectify the problem before my team members comes in at 7 o'clock. By doing this has really made it efficient because being a patient, you are scheduled for 7:30. You come in and 7:30 comes, they are looking at the clock. They don't want to wait 5, 10, or 15 minutes. So starting on time is really, really important to us. And also it helps with patient experience. It improves patient experience. And as we all know, time in the OR is most valuable resource. Delay in a start case can really hinder efficiency and also impact patient experience. And this is the team. My wife, they are very dedicated, committed team. They are always there. It's a great team. So what are the key ingredients to our success. Of all that I've talked about, to me personally, this is the most important one that has really elevated our program. Having alignment. I can't say more about this. Having the executive level, clinical excellence level, and operational working in unison has been phenomenal for us. We have Dr. Stifelman. He's the director of the robotic program, and also he's the chairman of urology. His dedication and commitment to our robotic program is first class. He has been instrumental to the success of our program, and he's a great nursing advocate. So having this alignment, what it does is the goals and the vision that is set from the executive level, the C-suite, it flows freely down to the OR, where the execution takes place. And also in the OR, our challenges and our vision also flows back to the executive leadership. So having this alignment, it has really empowered us as nurses. It has given us voice, and we know we matter. We know we have a seat at the table. So this has really helped our program to really move us to another level. So because of our well-structured training programs that we have, everyone being trained and also continuing to educate ourselves has really allowed us to provide 24/7 access. We don't say no to our surgeons nor our patients. And preparation, consistency, trade streamlining and consolidation has made us very efficient, and also providing care at a very cost-effective manner. So this is a quote that I really like. It says, "Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championship." This is by Michael Jordan. So what does winning games and championship have to do with OR nursing? To me, being aligned with the executive level has really, and working as a team, as we all work to provide the exemplary practice to achieve better outcome for our patients. So the working as a team is number one if you want to really elevate your program. So how do we align to the quadruple aim? From all that I've spoken about, working together with the executive team to achieve better health outcome, and also efficiencies, streamlining, as we're able to provide cost at cost-effective manner, improving patient experience, and most importantly, improving our staff as our experience, coming to work knowing that we have the support of the executives, having the resources that we need, getting the training in our skill that we need to really do our job has really made, getting a better experience as a staff or as a team. So this is how we align to the quadruple aim.
Okay, I'm gonna take it over from here and show you a little bit about our after hours program. So initially we thought we were going to be doing just some small cases out of the ER after hours. But we actually have done some really big cases after hours as well, including colon resections and nephrectomies. Prostatectomies is our number one after hours case, followed by that gallbladder. But we really have done the full gambit of cases after hours. So in our first year of offering after hours care, 22% of our robotic cases were done after 3 or on the weekend. So this allowed us to maximize our asset. We spend, close to $2 million on a robot, and we have an OR. And if you're not using it, it's sitting there empty, then you're not really maximizing the use of that investment. And it also reduces your cost of ownership because you're able to spread more cases over the robot. So when you go to ask for additional robots, you can really justify the cost of owning a robot. So this slide was kind of amazing to me. In 2020, which was, we all know, the year of COVID, we did 24% after hours robotic cases, and our robotic volume was higher than it was in 2018. So through COVID, robotics remained a strong service line for us. And I think the reason why is patients did not want to be in hospitals. So if you were able to do robotic surgery and get them in and out in a day or two, it was more palatable for patients to have the surgery that they needed. And we did a lot of cancer cases during COVID that we were able to get in because we didn't have that we have to get it done at a specific time or even in a specific place, because we had a robot over in our ambulatory surgery center as well. So it was amazing to look back at the data and see that we even grew our after hours program during COVID. So this slide really amazed us when we looked at it. It really blew everybody's mind. And we wanted to look at the average consult time for after hours cases and those done on the day shift, and our average cost for doing the cases. And we kind of thought we would see that, you know, surgeons are always talking about the bewitching hour when the nurses leave and the B team comes in. But because everyone here is so well trained and they're all the A team, when we analyze the data, it almost looks like you took the middle and you drew a line down the middle. In every single case type, the consult time and the average cost was the same, whether it was in the day shift, traditional 7 to 3, or after hours or on weekends. So this was really kind of amazing. And it showed us that when you invest in your team and you invest in education, the time of the day and the day of the week becomes meaningless. So we really, everyone says, well, you pay a lot of money for these Saturday trainings. Not really, because we were paying time and a half for robotic nurses to come in off hours or having patients wait to have their surgery done in-house for a day or two until they could get to the OR. So overall, investing in your team makes good economic sense and good quality sense. So when you have an opportunity to celebrate, I think that we all need to take opportunity to celebrate with our team. It's a team sport. It can't be done alone. It's not just the surgeons that are a robotic surgery program. It's not the hospital, it's the entire team. This is just a picture of our team at the 10-year celebration. And where we are at today is we've performed over 31,000 robotic surgery on patients over 21 years. So we have achieved our quadruple aim and the goals of the program, as well as assisted in the strategy and objectives of the senior executive team at the network. I'm going to turn over now to Stephanie. She's a Genesis consultant with Intuitive, and she will be able to tell you a little bit about what Intuitive has to offer. Thank you for your time and your participation in today's event.
All right. Thank you, Terry and Vivian, for your presentation. Your story at Hackensack, where you've been working to provide the best possible patient outcomes and experience, as well as your constant drive to align with your hospital's quadruple aim, is really inspirational. As Terry said, my name is Stephanie Davis. I'm the Western Genesis consultant, and Genesis is a part of Intuitive's greater ecosystem. What I'm going to be reviewing today in part 2 of the call is helping to establish and align with what your quadruple aim goals are at your hospital by creating a total team approach. As I mentioned, Terry and Vivian both brought up the quadruple aim in their presentations. And these are things that many of you are familiar with in your day-to-day lives in the healthcare space. It's also worth noting that while the collection of goals will look slightly different between hospitals, overall, they will share some common themes. Those include best possible patient outcomes, reducing cost without compromising care, and improving the work experience for staff and surgeons. I also want to think about the quadruple aim in a more detailed way that aligns to the specific goals that we see within the concept of the total team. When we think about improving the patient experience, this is really streamlining the episode of care. Vivian talks about doing this by showing up for her team and the patient at 6 a.m. to ensure there are less or no first case on-time start delays or in-room delays. Improved staff surgeon experience references reducing waste and waiting. Both Terry and Vivian talk about how does their goal to not say no to the surgeon, 24/7 access, 30-minute turnovers. It really does take that commitment for the improved experience. They also talk about their team culture being rooted in patient safety culture, using words such as pride, collaboration, and moral to describe their team members. Lowering the cost of care works in parallel with standardize and streamline. And truly, you cannot have one without the other. This is a big part of Vivian's role as a robotic coordinator, whether it be cost containment in the form of trays, preference cards, leaning out that back table setup. The total team approach is really the culmination of all of these things. And that, again, is correlated to better health outcomes. So what we're going to be talking about in the next few slides is the total team approach, what it is, why it matters for you and your teams, and lastly, how a total team can be nurtured and created at your hospital. The concept of total teams was created out of the recognition that robotic programs have changed. More specialties, more surgeons, more of a variety of cases. You've heard this from Terry and Vivian. And they both brought up the importance of not having different departments exist in silos. The concern with that is that maybe the larger goals will never be achieved because perhaps the root of the problem is not addressed. So when we think about more complex cases coming on board, anesthesia needs to have awareness. They need to be set up for success as well. Perhaps it's also expansion outside of prime hours. Does the robotic coordinator and educator have a plan in place for training team members? Perhaps also SPD needing to be educated on the reprocessing needs for the outside of prime hours. I want to now just get into what is a total team and start to kind of explain that for everyone. The three pillars that were referenced in Terry's presentation, it really starts here across executive, clinical, and operational. They all may have different goals, but understanding what is important in each pillar helps to build the structure and success of a robotic program. It's worth noting here that while you might not have all three pillars at any given time in a program, try and leverage from the pillars you do have. Have those individuals pull in others. Who else should be involved in order for you to achieve your programmatic goals? Communication cadence. So a robotic steering committee meeting can and should be different for every hospital, but there are also things that should be the same. It should be regularly scheduled, whether that be monthly or quarterly, depending on the need. And it should have an underlying focus of addressing goals, challenges, and opportunities. We've seen many hospitals start their program with a simple strengths and weaknesses approach in their steering committee meeting to understand some of those core issues. Each department has a role. So this is a crucial part of the total team. Everyone is involved. Having those involved in steering committee meetings or the relevant task force meeting is crucial to the success of the identified goal. So for example, scheduling needs to be involved with access, how time is released, extending hours. Perhaps the quality or data team members are involved in tracking and showing success metrics at the steering committee meeting. And the operational team, like Terry and Vivian, need to be involved in building a standardized onboarding pathway for team members outside of prime hours. Each department should be focused on determining their goals and identifying their barriers that they need to overcome to be successful. So this may look familiar for what we saw in Terry's presentation, but when you leave this call, think about your structure. What is missing and why? We discussed the three pillars, but it's also worth noting the base here again, the task force. I mentioned before that each hospital's total team structure may look different. For Terry and Vivian, their team at Hackensack believes in their people at their core. And this means that the task force rolls up the identified goals and barriers to the steering committee meeting and the individuals in the roles of the 3 pillars. They then discuss a plan to achieve goals or overcome barriers, and in turn, then the task force goes to work. You also see communication as a key part of this structure all the way through the whole structure of the robotic steering committee meeting. The structure of the total team house is really helping with 3 things: setting clear goals for your Da Vinci program, establishing metrics to drive program initiatives, so utilizing communication strategies that connect your team members, as well as providing leadership, sharing vision, devoting resources, and monitoring progress, really ultimately helping drive progress towards those operational goals. We mentioned each department has a role in the total team and that they are all connected at the central point of communication. In this case, that's the steering committee meeting. I want to reference examples of how everyone plays a responsibility in helping to identify areas of opportunity or goals for the robotic program. So within the OR team, how and when new members train and what is the process? Vivian and Terry have several different pathways that you saw to help ensure success across different roles and different experience. The surgeon, so the concept of sharing wins is something I've seen be very valuable to team members. Maybe it was when a surgeon had a story about a patient that's doing really well after a tough surgery, or perhaps it's celebrating a day where turnovers are the best they've ever been, or a multiple case day for the first time. Scheduling is an important part of an ever-changing robotic program. We've seen that be especially true with the expansion of general surgery. Also SPD, the SPD team can help communicate when there's challenges around turning over trays or being looped into when a robotic program is expanding, so they can understand those needs of those weekend or late cases. They then understand what the reprocessing needs are in turn. Leadership, so I addressed the 3 pillars on the previous slide, but pulling your leadership team based on challenges that come up around achieving larger programmatic goals. Lastly, intuitive, and we will discuss the ecosystem in detail on the next slide, but intuitive can be pulled in once you understand what your program goals are, as well as earlier in the process if you're unsure of exactly what resource you may need. We've referenced the intuitive ecosystem at several points through my presentation. You also saw it in Terry and Vivian's. I want to give a reference image, really a list of items here that are connected to the ecosystem across the 3 tiers: innovation and integration, training and education, as well as support and analytics. At the center of the ecosystem is patients, surgeons, and hospitals. And all of these items listed here are part of the ecosystem, which is why I mentioned it's important for you to understand what your hospital goals are when leveraging a resource, but also perhaps consider speaking to Intuitive earlier in your training process to see how we can help support you and your team. Depending on what is important to you, the tier you utilize will vary. So let's say it's understanding more about Intuitive's advanced instrumentation and how they can enable surgeons to help more patients. Perhaps we would reference the innovation and integration tier. Maybe it's understanding what resources are available for your new or current robotic coordinator. How can they help reach your total team goals within that training and education tier? You may also find value in collaborating with our market analysis team. They can help understand your data and that they are living within that support and analytics tier. I want to take a moment here to talk about why a total team approach matters, why it matters for you and your team. So collaboration is the first piece. Having different goals across different departments is expected. When we bring people together with different job responsibilities for a total team approach, there's an opportunity to discuss ways to improve depending on the need and where there are places you can gather or replicate a goal in another department. A perfect example of this is building a task overlap model or a parallel tasking model, which we saw that Terry was actually, or Vivian rather, was talking about with understanding the different activities in the room. We've seen that once a model like this is implemented in the OR and you're able to reduce those non-operative times, it then might be trialed in SPD or PeriOp or pre-op to help with workflow efficiencies. Communication. So what has worked in one department might not work in another and vice versa. So having regular communication helps to avoid the recreating the wheel for efforts that have already been successful in other departments. Consistency. So consistency here is essentially accountability. By giving updates to progress or barriers that have averted success, the total team has updated awareness for the current state. Goal. So being goal-driven, most important part here, it's going to help build strength in your total team. Vivian and Terry discuss some of their goals: capacity and throughput, quality-driven outcomes, growth, system access. Make your goals attainable. Start small and be deliberate. Give your total team a win and move forward to the next goal. Priorities will change and goals may change with them. When we start to think about the why behind total team and understanding how it is valuable through data, I wanted to present a paper from Dr. Terry Loftus. Dr. Loftus is a pioneer of understanding the total team approach. Really, in his paper, he was looking outside of just the surgeon perspective to understand and study the true benefit of the total team. So Dr. Loftus had previously managed a robotic program for an IDN representing 20 robotic systems across 13 hospitals. What he reviewed in his paper is the result of a total team or robotic program structure having 75% of the requirements that you see listed here. You may have heard many of these items. They were in Terry and Vivian's presentation. So understanding data around quality, cost and utilization, consistency of meeting, setting their annual goals. You all see them listed here. Dr. Loftus noted that the result of 75% of those items listed previously was a 46% decrease in observed complication rates. He also noted that there was a 37% lower than expected costs when the total team structure is in place. These percentages are both directly correlated to the why within the quadruple aim: improving patient experience and outcomes, as well as lowering the cost of care. So what I want to focus on next is how can a total team be implemented into your program? Let's get into that now. The how is usually the most important part. Start by thinking about your structure, what you may be missing. And I mentioned before that all total teams will not look the same, and that's okay. There's not one way to look at this circle, and I did do that on purpose. In a perfect world, maybe the order would look like this. We start by identifying our total team, right? So who are our key stakeholders? We're bringing in those with mixed experience. Perhaps, as Terry and Vivian brought up, we're reevaluating those in current roles. Reference the group needs to align with the goal to avoid that ineffective steering committee meeting. Setting the goals. So maybe this is starting with a strengths and weaknesses analysis. Address a specific need. Maybe it's preference cards. Maybe it's non-operative time reduction. Maybe it's the OR central reprocessing workflow or extended access for cases. Assess current state. So metrics to set the baseline. And this is key here. And you know, Terry spent a lot of time talking about data. Data is king, and it helps to build a baseline of understanding where you can improve, how you can improve, and what's important to you. Leverage the ecosystem. So pulling in intuitive, once you know what is important to you, your needs and your total team needs. Maybe it's Genesis for an efficiency project or block access analysis. Customer success is a resource for reviewing the portal, the customer portal, and intuitive learning, or perhaps the market analysis team for understanding your hospital's data. Recommend and implement. So designate a team lead, drive ownership and accountability, track and share your progress moving forward. The last piece within this circle is continuing to build the vision. So what is the next goal? And sometimes what we find out is that is the original goal a symptom of a larger problem? Within the middle of your total team circuit, you have the robotic steering committee meeting and the task force. And really, they're the nucleus of the total team here. It's also worth considering that you may start in the middle to assess current state within your task force. And this is something that Vivian and Terry have as part of their structure. The task force identifies the problem and the current state, and then in turn, they communicate the needs to meet and set the goals. I wanted to end with an example of the application of the total team process to achieve the goal of expanded access. So in this case, expanded access refers to cases that are after hours or weekends. And this is something similar to what Terry and Vivian did with their team at Hackensack. So it starts in the robotic steering committee meeting discussion, identifying your total team members. Perhaps robotic cases are not allowed to be scheduled after 3 p.m. or weekends, and there's a surgeon that is requesting this time. So who needs to be involved? Scheduling, the surgeon requesting time, the OR director, maybe the SPD team, perhaps an executive within the hospital. You're then using your task force team to identify or assess current state. So what is the process to book a late case? And what has been preventing weekend cases from happening? Is it staff and staff, in terms of competency and understanding after hours cases? Is it anesthesia availability? It could vary. Setting your goals. So in this case, it's cases outside of prime hours. For building a standardized training pathway for your PM staff or the ORS, leverage the intuitive ecosystem. Remember that training support variability in staff competency or confidence limits the availability of teams to support cases. When you move forward with a new process for scheduling late cases or weekend cases for surgeons, involve and ensure that all barriers are removed in this new workflow and that there's awareness. Now we're in that recommend and implement phase. Refine your goals. So identify our target date for a specific weekend, a specific surgeon. Start small and make the goal achievable. Sometimes we see hospitals make a decision to go to 24 access and they want to flip a switch and immediately go to 24 hours. But consider a graduated approach to expanded hours, maybe to 5 p.m., 7 p.m., and then to 24 hours. Move forward with a plan. So celebrate it, right? Whether that be in a newsletter or announcing to staff in the huddle, celebrate the new milestone and continue to build the vision. This is just one example really where the total team worked together to achieve expanded access, and your team, your process will absolutely look unique to you and your hospital.